Good day, everybody. It's Emar Soap and welcome to another edition of the Sports Inquirer Show. Hope all is well with you in the world. We are doing good here in Atlanta, Georgia, as it's holding things down. We're recording this on July 15th, 2020, midway point of the month, kind of midway point of the summer. So we are up and active, and we're going to talk a lot about summer sports, some returning and some that are preparing to return, and we'll delve into all of that as we go on today. As always, if you want to follow everything that we're doing, the premier site to go to is sportsinquirer.net. You can head there and see archives of all of our previous shows, as far as the Sports Inquirer show, which you're listening to now, to the Verbal Submission podcast, which is a combat sports show, and everything in between. You can also go to Twitter and Instagram, social media platforms there, and look up Sports Inquirer. That's all one word. Look that up, and you'll be able to see our sites or see our pages on there and be able to check out everything that we're doing. On Facebook, go to either one of our pages, the Sports Inquirer or Sports Inquirer, one of those, and you'll be able to check out everything as well. And finally, subscribe to us on YouTube and on SoundCloud under the Sports Inquirer, those separate words. Do a search there, and you'll be able to get archives for all of our past shows. And when you subscribe, you get updates and alerts of when we do new shows. So that is a great way to follow everything that we're doing. As far as today's show, we're going to keep it pretty straightforward. We're going to do the original free kick, which is focused on MLS's back tournament. Atlanta United prepares to face Cincinnati on July 16th. We'll preview that matchup. We'll discuss Manchester City getting his 2-year Champions League ban reversed. And then we'll move on to the backdoor cut, when we'll focus on the WNBA. The schedule has been released and announced officially for the 2020 season. And we'll be able to speak with Nicki Collen, the head coach of the Dream, about the early practices and the outlook of the season. And one more thing we'll talk about is the NFL. We'll go to NBA as well, as far as the bubble and some news coming out of there. Gridiron Blitz will discuss the long-term moves of the Kansas City Chiefs with Chris Jones and Dak Prescott with the Cowboys and everything going on there. And then finally, technical side of Georgia Athletics, we'll discuss the continued change and evolution of the fall calendar for college athletics and how it affects not only teams locally here in the state of Georgia, but around the nation. So we're going to go into all of that. Let's start with the original free kick, the MLS's back tournament. Matches have been continuing on and playing even as early as this morning. I think everyone has played at least one match so far in the tournament. I think actually no, there wasn't a match today. I think San Jose and Vancouver played tonight on July 15th, and Vancouver will finally find its way onto the field for the tournament. The biggest themes have been the heat. It's unavoidable, and we combine that with players who have not been on the pitch in a competitive basis for several months. That's going to lead to some stress of the hammies and the joints and the thighs and all that stuff. We're seeing a lot of stretching, a lot of cramping, which was expected with this type of tournament. But I've not heard any major injuries to date, so that's a good thing for all teams involved. And we're seeing some good teams that are starting to emerge and find themselves in good positions after one match. We look at Columbus. They looked really good as far as playing really well. We've had some fun matches too. We had LAFC and Houston played to a very competitive 3-3 draw, and that was intriguing. So we're seeing some squads look good, maybe some teams not look so good. But one team that's kind of in between is Atlanta United. They're looking to rebound from their 1-0 loss to the New York Red Bulls in their opener of the tournament on July 11th. As mentioned in our previous show, Atlanta had more than 20 crosses, were unable to score a goal. George Bello had a shot hit the crossbar, I think it was crossbar. Yeah, it was a high shot, hit the crossbar. Some other guys had some shots that were close to going in the contest. But Frank de Boer discussed those offensive struggles and where the team can kind of go from there. So here's Frank de Boer, the manager, discussing those missed offensive opportunities.
To be better, but also the occupation in the box itself, of course, has to be better, but also the finishing. I think if you see we had two crosses with to Mano Castro, and 2 times he mishit it. So yeah, then it's not a shot on goal. But for me, it was really a good chance. Also in the first half, the cross that Brooks gave, but it was a little bit too hard. Maybe he couldn't control it really, Manuel. Because if it's a little bit slower, probably you can have an easy tap in or control, and then have a very big opportunity. So it's it's not only the delivery. Sometimes it's the player itself. Sometimes it's delivery, and sometimes it's the occupation in the box itself.
And that was manager Frank de Boer discussing the missed offensive opportunities of the team during the contest. We're able to speak with Manuel Castro, a new player on the team, and he discussed the loss to the Red Bulls and what the team can take away from it. So here is Manuel Castro discussing the defeat.
Sí, como decís vos, creo que el primer tiempo, creo que Red Bull nos hace gol a los primeros minutos y después sobre todo tuvimos la pelota, pero no teníamos mucha profundidad. Pero bueno, buscamos, intentamos, tuvimos la de George que pega en el palo, esa jugada es una jugada muy clara, que bueno que pegó en el travesaño, no se pudo dar. Después creo que tuve una también en el primer tiempo que tuvo un mal control, pero lo buscamos por todas maneras. En el segundo tiempo también tuvimos chances, generamos, mismo hasta el último minuto sacan una pelota de Adam, el golero, generamos la chance y bueno, se dio así, no quiso entrar, queríamos ganar porque vinimos a eso, queríamos ganar. Y te digo la verdad, lo que pasó después en el camarino con los compañeros, no pude estar con el grupo porque, bueno, recibí un golpe en la cabeza y bueno, tuve que ir con los médicos de la MLS a hacer los estudios. Y no pude estar en el camarino, pero después que estuve comiendo con ellos, la verdad que mucha tranquilidad. Si bien las primeras sensaciones después de perder un partido son todas malas, pero bueno, analizándolo bien, tuvimos chance de goles, no se dio el gol, a veces puede pasar que no se dé el gol, y bueno, ahora vamos a mejorar porque no, ahora, a partir de ahora creo que no podemos tener margen de error.
Well, in the first half, I think that they scored very early, but after that, we were able to have more of the ball, but we were lacking being able to find a little bit of depth to be able to stretch their defense. But George had a good chance and hits the crossbar. I think I had a good chance in the first half, and in the second half, it was more of the same. We're doing everything we could to find a goal. We're trying everything, and I think we created some chances and had a lot of the ball. It was a game that we wanted to win. And after the game, the mood in the locker room, I couldn't tell you how it was immediately after the game because after getting hit in the head, I had the MLS doctors were checking me out. But afterwards, being with the team at the meals, the mood was we were upset because we wanted to win the first game. But I think now we're all thinking ahead to the next match. And we know we need a winning mentality because there's a small margin for error now.
And that was Manuel Castro discussing the loss and just the areas of improvement for the team as they move on. One highlight for the squad I mentioned earlier, George Bello, he had a very strong scoring opportunity in the first half, just hit the post or hit the crossbar. I always got that confused. I have to go back to my hockey terms. Post is the thing that goes up and down, and the crossbar is one that goes left to right or vertical and horizontal. So I have to always get those mixed up. But it did hit the crossbar and did not go into the net. But he played the full, I think he played the full 90, looked very well. It was first appearance with the senior team for Atlanta United within MLS since October of 2018. So he discussed him returning to the field and what it meant for him in his career, getting back with Atlanta United. So this is George Bello.
No, I mean, you can never predict these kind of things, right? I mean, there's always been injury setbacks and all that kind of stuff, but it feels great just to be back. And it's really a step forward, even though we're disappointed with the result yesterday or the day before when we played. It was a really good kind of thing for me just to be back out there. And it felt like really some sort of an accomplishment just being back out there after everything that's been going on regarding me with injuries and stuff like that. But yeah, that's what I'll say on that. I feel like I did okay. It was good to be a first game back. Obviously, we all haven't played a full kind of match like that in so long. So it was a solid match. Regarding what Frank told me to do, I mean, he likes our outside backs to like press a lot. So he likes us really high up sometimes, but then obviously we have to know when the ball's on the other side or when the ball's on our side, our positioning to help like the three in the back, whether it's Myles, Franco, or Meza. So, but he likes us to press most times. So we just always have to be ready to press, but always also have to be ready to drop back and defend. So it's kind of just reading the game and that kind of view. It's not really anything specific.
Yep. You guys.
And that was George Bello discussing his return to the field. And I asked him directly about Greg Berhalter, the manager of the U.S. national team. He's been watching all of the matches. I give credit to him. He has different outfits for every match. It's a different mask and different shirt combo. He's very color coordinated. But on a serious note, this is a good opportunity for him and a lot of other people, or at least I don't know what the scouting situation is, but he has been able to see all of his major players that at least play in MLS, from Zardes with Columbus and Michael Bradley with Toronto and other guys as well. And we've seen Bello play with the youth, the under 18 squads and under 16 teams. So he is on the U.S. radar as far as playing for the national team. And as we've seen, it's the United States team has qualified for the World Cup in a major transition. Bello, he's 18 years old right now, is a guy that maybe could see some time, and especially on the wing spot, which the United States could use some help in. So I talked to George Bello about him and that opportunity of appearing with the United States national team, and Berhalter being right there to see him and appear in these contests.
Actually talked to him, said hey to him, but yeah, it's really a good opportunity, of course, for anybody just trying to get on the national team. I mean, that's the head coach. So it's a really good opportunity, like I said, to just show what you can do and just work hard, just give yourself an opportunity, a chance, because you never know. So, I mean, yeah, it's just a great opportunity that is here and watching. And yes, it looks like he's like at every game. So it's a good opportunity for us boys just to show ourselves that play for the national team. And there's a good chance to have opportunities to get called up.
And that was George Bello discussing the opportunity to play in front of Greg Berhalter and make an appearance for the national team, the senior team, in the future. Atlanta itself, they now prepare to face FC Cincinnati. I said tomorrow on July 16th. The Cincinnati had a 2-0 loss to Columbus, really struggled in that contest. So both teams are looking to get a win to keep themselves in contention for the tournament. And the way the format is set up, in all of the groups, the top two teams are able to advance to the next round. And then you look at the third place squad, the best third place squads will advance as well. So if you look at right now, the Red Bulls and the Crew have full 3 points, while Atlanta United and Cincinnati are at 0 points. So if Cincinnati or Atlanta want to find a way to put themselves in contention for a top 2 spot in the group, they are going to have to win the contest have to win against each other and get the full 3 points. Now, kickoff is at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We've seen, and we'll definitely see the 2 water breaks, I'm assuming, in each half. And it has been, if you've been to Florida this time of year, and I assume if you listen to this show, at some point you've been either to Miami or Disney World in Orlando or Jacksonville. We've all been to Florida in the summertime, and it is rough. And they try to have the matches at 9 a.m. and then play at nighttime. And the nighttime matches bad, but the morning matches are really rough. Every team, I think, is going to have to do it at least once. We even saw Seattle play a 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time game when they're a West Coast-based team. So that was a 6 a.m. wake-up in their normal time. But Atlanta has to do it, and they are part of it. So we spoke with de Boer about playing in the morning and what that means for the squad.
Yeah, we are not used to this kind of times. We have, of course, like 3 hours before. We have normally it's pre-meal, but we don't have that anymore, of course. So it's like more breakfast, and I can imagine that a lot of players, don't think about pasta, at 6 o'clock in the morning. So we have to adapt. Everybody, they have the same problem with that, and You see today, how hot it is, and especially because it continues every 50 minutes is getting hotter and hotter. And I saw a player of Chicago today after 54 minutes. I saw him, getting cramps. So that means it's a really tough circumstances. And but we have to we'll deal with it. Cincinnati had the same, but I can imagine, we have, better preparations, towards the game, and especially 9 o'clock in the morning is. Well, I cannot remember as a player really that I played on this hour.
And that was Frank de Boer discussing playing in the morning time in the contest against Cincinnati, and also we talked with them about how it affects the player's stamina and how it affects his rotation and his starting lineup. So here's Frank discussing the start time and how it affects the stamina of the players.
I want to keep everybody, fit, also towards, hopefully we're going to play the playoffs. Then you have a shorter time to recover, of course. I think in 3 or 4 days you have games. So we cannot take risks, that the guys get muscle injuries, and especially on places that you think, hey, they have to cover so many grounds. And so we really look to see, okay, which player can play again, or which player, we have to modify, and don't let them start maybe a 30-minute game or something like that. So there will gonna be a rotation. And by the way, I have seen better shirts of.
And that was Frank de Boer discussing the player's stamina. We spoke with Emerson Hyndman, midfielder for Atlanta United, and the playing conditions. And as I mentioned, playing at 9 a.m. and the subsequent issues that come with that start time in the middle of the Florida heat in Orlando. Here's Emerson discussing the playing conditions and how the team and himself personally prepare for them.
I mean, I remember in youth days, when I was younger, and obviously a tournament would last the whole weekend, that kind of thing. But obviously the heat's going to be a factor going into it. We've been training in a little bit, and obviously training at 7 compared to 9 is a little bit different. But I think that comes with the tournament itself. It's a challenge for everyone. Everyone's kind of getting back into fitness and game fitness, so it's just another little challenge, but something I think we can overcome. I mean, it's definitely different down here with the humidity. Obviously first game back too, first real game. So, obviously covering a lot of ground, or it feels a lot more ground than usual just because it's first game back. So, I think that's definitely a challenge for all the teams here. Unless you're in Florida, or unless you're Orlando or Miami, I guess they're used to it. But I think it's good that we're getting adapted to it quick. I mean, we've been here for about a week now, a little over a week. So, hopefully the 9 o'clock kickoff doesn't affect us as badly as it would have. Swing of things, I've been negative the whole time here, so everything's been fine. But I'm playing catch up a little bit. So, during the game, it was obviously quite tough for me physically. So I couldn't be probably as box to box as I normally would. But I think overall the team did pretty well. Obviously conceded chances, things like that normally we wouldn't have if we're sharper. But in terms of midfield, I think Mo did a great job. Doing his thing. He got on the ball quite a lot. Broke up plays. So, overall, I think it was pretty decent.
All right, and that was Emerson Hyndman discussing the playing conditions. And as I mentioned, Cincinnati themselves, they're looking for the first win in the tournament. They lost 2-0 to the Columbus Crew in the opener. Here's manager Frank de Boer previewing Cincinnati specifically and what their threats are.
We have to be prepared, for both scenarios, that they're going to press a little bit more, or they're going to play a little bit more deeper. And I just the first come back to the first question of Doc, that I think when we have the ball, to get more movements, from every player to free players, I think that could be also a little bit better. And we trained on that today. And I think we have to think, of course, of both scenarios. And I think, both scenarios has their advantage and disadvantage, of course. But we will be prepared for both scenarios.
And that was manager Frank de Boer discussing the FC Cincinnati in the contest, and we'll have a recap of that contest on our Friday edition of the show. Let's expand out to the international stage and Manchester City. They won their appeal to the Court of Arbitration for Sports, CAS, over the alleged financial fair play violations and are free to play in the Champions League next season. That announcement went down on Monday, July 13th. Now, City were originally banned from European competition for 2 seasons, but they won their appeal to CAS. So that means the 5th place team in the Premier League will no longer qualify for the Champions League. And right now, as we sit right now, that's pretty much just so Manchester City's in 2nd place right now. They're going to finish, they're guaranteed, well, not guaranteed, maybe mathematically, I have to see, but they're going to finish 2nd place in the Premier League behind the champions Liverpool. So they're going to be in the Champions League pretty much. And we have Liverpool, Leicester City, and no, we have Manchester United, Chelsea, and Leicester City fighting for 2 out of the final 4 spots in the Champions League, and we'll see how that goes down. But also, so the teams like Sheffield United and Wolves are kind of hoping to get into that race. I want to say Arsenal, but my boys are not playing so well. But the point is, those teams, it's not going to be a move up in the standings. So we're looking at those 5 teams for 4 Champions League spots, as I've mentioned. And the initial fine of 30 million was also reduced. 30 million euros was also reduced to 10 million euros following the verdict. And the CAS said that most of the alleged breaches were not established or time bound. My thoughts on this are, you have to, FIFA now is, FIFA and the UEFA, they really had their power cut out from under them by the CAS. The financial fair play rules have been established for years. If you follow the sport, you have to place your compensation. That's where Manchester City, they were not acknowledging their financial resources as far as merchandising, marketing. They were not playing, the accusations were they were not playing fair with their books as far as announcing where their funds were coming from TV and everything like that. So when you have these squads that we all know, it's kind of similar to NFL, NBA to a lesser degree, but NFL is more universal as far as the TV deals and the merchandise, things like that. We already know that the pot, if say it's $1 billion, just a hypothetical number, it's a lot more than that, and it's a little more complicated, but let's just say, for our purposes, the money is $1 billion, and it's cut into 32 separate pieces equally. So the New York Giants or the Dallas Cowboys, teams are really from big markets, get the same amount of money as the Green Bay Packers, which is, I think, still out of the 4 professional major sports in the United. And as far as football, baseball, basketball, and hockey, is the smallest market out of all of those leagues, at least here in North America. So you have the situation where the Packers get as much as the Giants on the TV deal, and we know all of that. But they also have the same deal as far as marketing, as far as the merchandising and things like that. So you buy a Aaron Rodgers jersey, they'll get the same amount of cut as someone that buys a Saquon Barkley jersey, the Giants running back and the Packers quarterback. So you see what I'm saying? It's very equally distributed in that way. Manchester City was not using that interpretation. They have the deals with Sky Sports and with NBC Sports and all that stuff. That's part of the league, but so we know the money they get from that. But they were being very shady, allegedly. I say allegedly now because it was reversed, so they weren't officially charged with it, as far as what their financial standings were. The reality is that we already know that there's probably 8-10 teams that are always going to have an advantage, just the way things are structured. And it's a good thing when you see in at least I'll say in England, EPL, and you see a team like Wolves and Leicester City smaller markets kind of contend and have their moments. But we know Manchester City, Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, those teams are going to have some very strong advantages as far, and Tottenham, I'll throw them in there too, have some strong advantages. Then you go to the rest of Europe. We know about Bayern and Barcelona and Real Madrid and PSG, you know, and in France. These teams have such a big advantage, and the way the financial structure is with just the way their situations are, you have to be very careful that you don't see the same teams competing at the high level. When you get to the point where you can predict the top 2 or 3, that's where you don't want that. And you see that in Germany with Bayern Munich, and I respect the Dortmund and Lisping, and they've had some decent runs in the past few years, and Schalke and all that. But Bayern Munich is going to win the Bundesliga. We already know that. They do a good job. They acquire players. They do it. They win it on the field once the ball is kicked off. But the financial advantages are so strong, it makes it very tough for a neutral to really get into the league. And we have Manchester City in that same scenario, and England's like that too. I get joked about with some other people because I'm an Arsenal supporter, but Arsenal is on the higher end of the financial scenario in the EPL. But I still like to see Wolves and Leicester City and Southampton, and, get a chance to compete for Europe and even for the Champions League, because I think that's good for the league. I think if you can just say the 2 Manchester teams, Liverpool and Chelsea, are going to be in the Champions League before the season even starts, that's a bad deal. That doesn't make it exciting. So that's why I think this ruling, it really makes you wonder financial fair play and the concept of it, because they're not going to do a salary cap, because someone think that'd be the ultimate answer. It's just very complicated to have that, especially in the football and the global game. In the NFL, you can have that because the American football, the NFL, there are leagues around the world literally that play football, but the NFL is the main sport. It's the main entity. It's very narrow in the scope of it. You can't do that with football. If you have the EPL and the United Kingdom with a cap, and Spain and Italy don't have a cap, how does that work? Juventus can spend all the money that they want, yet if you have, if Arsenal wants to do the same deal, they can't spend as much if there's a cap. It's just it's very tough. I think the realities are that you're going to have teams with wants that have advantages and don't have advantages, but you cannot have a ruling from FIFA and down to the UEFA and have a separate arbiter just completely eliminated. It wasn't even a 1-year ban or elimination from this year's Champions League of 2020, which is going to resume in a few weeks. They completely eliminated it, period. Didn't go from 2 years to 1 year. It was just gone completely. And to cut the fine by more than 60%, more than half, that's a little rough to see that happen. But, and that's where you see the Jurgen Klopps of Liverpool and Jose Mourinho of Tottenham. And I know they're very intense rivals with Manchester City, so seeing them down is beneficial to them. But also, it's just a fair point that if you violate the rules, you must be punished in some way. And just to have the arbiter go in there and make that move, I was very surprised by that. Next, we move on to the backdoor cut and basketball happenings. The Atlanta Dream are continuing prep for their regular season, which is now set to start July 26th against the Dallas Wings. We got the schedule that came out after our last show, so we are seeing them. They're going to start on July 26th. Able to speak with Nicki Collen about the early practices and how the team is organizing so far. Not they've had a few days of practice at the IMG Academy in Florida. So here is Coach Collen.
Yesterday we took off, so we came back today and went as long as we've gone so far. We're able to start with some film, get some good film on us from those first few days, and kind of start with that, which is a little bit more of, for me, a normal practice. Even going those first 3 days without starting with film is kind of uncomfortable for me, but kind of getting into the mode of, the rhythm of being here and what we can get out. And, we're always going to have somebody across the curtain from us. So lots of noise and lots of chaos and lots of balls bouncing. So, we're just at least starting to fall into a rhythm of what our days look like. And of course, after a week, our practice time is going to flip and be in the morning. So that'll be a change. But I think our players are playing hard. I think our conditioning is improving. We've taken the approach that a little bit of less is more. So whether it's offensively or defensively, figuring out what we're good at and, working hard to be really good at fewer things rather than to have just a huge playbook in or 17 ways to guard something. We're really trying to fine tune that with 10 new players. And I mean, having only 9 on the practice court right now, you can only do so much.
And now is Nicki Collen of the Atlanta Dream discussing the team and what she's seen from them. Lots of turnover on the roster. They do return Elizabeth Williams and Monique Billings, but they have 10 new players on the roster for this year. Tiffany Hayes and Renee Montgomery, they are not playing this season. They have opted out of the bubble for the WNBA for various reasons. And then Adrian McCautry, arguably the best player in franchise history, moved on as a free agent and signed with Las Vegas. So here is Coach Collen talking about the roster turnover and her handling it.
I think they really get along. It's a really good group. I think when you have so many new faces, they tend to be good listeners because they don't think they already know, because maybe we teach something a little bit differently or have different expectations. Basketball is basketball, but I think, when you're in that situation and you're trying to figure each other out, we've had great leadership from Elizabeth Williams, who is one of our few returnees, and getting a ton of energy in the gym from Blake and Monique, who are also returnees. So they kind of drive the pace of practice. And E's been like a really good voice for this group. Obviously, dealing with them getting together and writing the letter in support of each other and the Black Lives Movement. It kind of started with that with Elizabeth, and I think it's just kind of carried through to kind of how she's leading our group. So for the most part, our chemistry is good. I think we've got nice players, with good character and are here wanting to be good and wanting to get better. And, we just got to figure out what it's going to take for us to be a really good basketball team.
And that was Coach Collen discussing the roster turnover and the team and how they're working it out. As far as the NBA goes, we have received news about Russell Westbrook, the Houston Rockets guard. He has the coronavirus. He announced it. There's never first, and when I say all these, first, I hope he ends up healthy and all that stuff. We all want that. But if you're going, and there's never a good time to get the coronavirus. But if, as far as sports go, and the way the calendar sets up, if you get it now before the games start, that's a better alternative than to be in the middle of the regular season, as when it concludes, starting in a few weeks. And even worse in the playoffs, or if your team makes it to the NBA Finals, that's the biggest fear overall right now. Obviously, there's the health concerns of just human beings. You want everyone to be healthy. But the fear is that, and I don't want to put bad karma on a player, but if you're on the Bucks or the Lakers, because those are teams with 2 best records, and let's just say things pan out, and a star player, or not even a reserve player on one of those teams gets the coronavirus, how does that affect the finals? Are you going to shut it down for a week or two because the guys just played each other and all of that stuff? How do you handle that? And what if you have the officials? And it's just a lot going on there. So I think and the players starting to come out with, I think Harrison Barnes, he has the virus as well. So guys they're going to get it. It's just inevitable. You can really get this thing just being in contact with another person across the room. And we've done enough we've acted like pseudoscientists about the virus and all that stuff, and been political, and I'm not going to go down that route. But I will say that if you have all of these people in one area, you are bound to get people with the virus and how you handle it. And I think that it's good, just PR wise in life in general, that people are announcing that they have the virus and it's being handled and all of that stuff, and it's not treated as a death sentence. And I think that's where we're getting to a point of, and there's a lot of people have died, more than 100,000 in the United States alone, and we've seen the numbers spike up in a lot of states, including Florida, where the NBA tournament or the rest of the season is going to take place in Orlando, Florida. So they're right in the middle of the hotbed of the virus. So you have to acknowledge that. But hopefully it's getting to the point where people say they have the virus, they're getting proper treatment, isolation, and doing what they have to do, and you're able to move on from there. So Westbrook says he has the virus. He says that he's doing the proper steps and just hope he's healthy. Going back to on the court, Philadelphia's experimenting with Ben Simmons as a power forward. And to me, this shows the ultimate indication that the Markelle Fultz experiment blunder is going to ultimately cost the Sixers. We've heard about trust the process and all the picks that they made over the years, and Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid have turned into all-stars, and you could say maybe top 5 players in their respective positions in the NBA. I say you could definitely say that with Embiid at the center spot. Simmons, his jump shot is below questionable. It's bad by professional standards. He does everything else well. He's an excellent defender, distributes the ball, rebounds, does everything you want. But a man who is 6'9" or 6'10" as a point guard and an excellent ball handler for that position, but cannot shoot the ball, really hinders their performance. And that's where Markelle Fultz, who they drafted as the first overall pick a few years ago, I always thought that he would ultimately be the ball handler, and you would see Simmons in a point forward position where his shooting is not as much of an imperative of imperative importance. And that was the way they were going to go. But Fultz, whether he injured the shoulder and developed a hitch in his shot, and whether it was mental or wherever, he's gone down to Orlando, he's with the Magic, and has kind of found his way back into the league and playing on a regular basis. But that really hurt their chances. And you would figure in a short tournament or an event like this, I mean, Simmons and Embiid are arguably 2 of the top 20 players in the NBA. They're both all-stars. So when you have that, you have a chance to make a good run. But they're experimenting with him at this stage of the year at that power forward spot. When you have Al Horford there and you also have Embiid, that's a lot of size, a lot of clogging of the post. Tobias Harris, if he should be playing. Tobias Harris makes his importance even more. So we'll see what happens with Philadelphia. They say they're experimenting, but maybe that's just in special scenarios. We'll see what happens there. And last thing about that, with the NBA bubble, players need to be very careful with their complaints about the conditions in the bubble. We've seen they've shown pictures of the food that they're getting and all the other. We've heard the grumblings of not being able to do certain things. We're sympathetic to that cause. I mean, we're all human, and we all understand that them being sequestered can be tough. But you got to have a grander scope of things, and that's why. And then it ties into the jersey. If I have to hear more about what's on the back of the jerseys with these social causes, LeBron doesn't have one, and then Anthony Davis, they're going to go with their last names. Then Jimmy Butler, he's going to have no name on the back. And then you have players complaining about not having enough options with what's focus on the direct cause and direct focus. You're there to play basketball, compete for a championship, and the league has been very good about allowing you to go certain routes and express yourself in certain ways. This is where, and I'm not saying for myself, but this is why I hear from people and read a lot of stuff. The players are looking entitled and spoiled and not focusing on it's like there's more focused on what's on the jersey and what their meal plan is. And these are, and it's important. They're pro athletes. They should be able to, what they put into their bodies is important. We get all of that. But it seems like there's more focus on that and less on actually playing ball games and competing in the sports level. So the players just need to be careful about that type of stuff. Gridiron Blitz, pretty straightforward as we move on to the NFL. Chris Jones signed his big deal with the Kansas City Chiefs defensive lineman for 4 years, pretty solid amount of money. This is where that Pat Mahomes signing was so important, where they're able to get him on the books, and everyone's talking about, I guess the 10 years, we'll say $500 million, whatever it ends up being. Oh, that's too much. What's the team gonna do? How can they handle that amount of money? They're all right. I haven't seen Mahomes complaining at all. He got compensated very well also, and it just shows that if you have the quarterback and the right head quarterback and right head coach, and Andy Reid looks like he's the right guy for them, and Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league, you'll have players willing to work with you and get to that organization. They do have stuff to re-sign some linemen, particularly Fisher and Travis Kelce. We get all of that stuff, and Watkins is a free agent at the end of the season. We get all that stuff, but if you're able to set the right infrastructure and have the quarterback and the head coach, just like New England for the past 20 years, really the last 15, when Brady and Belichick established themselves as that premier franchise in the league, that's where you're going to get the Corey Dillons, the Randy Mosses to come to your squad, and they'll be all right. That's where Kansas City is at. You can't pay everybody, but you paid your best offensive player and you paid your best defensive player. And when you do that, you're good. At the defensive line spot and at the quarterback, you're set for the next few years, injuries withstanding. So that was a smart move by the Chiefs to get that done. And Myles Garrett, he signed his big deal, I think 5 years, $120 million. I'm not going to look at his incident with the helmet hit throwing and all of that from last year. You just have to wonder, he's been a very good player. He's been solid, but has he elevated himself to that Aaron Donald, J.J. Watt, that game wrecker, dominant defensive player that we've seen from those guys over the past few years? Is Garrett in that role? I don't think so. But he was their first overall pick. He's homegrown. It's very hard not to re-sign him. But this is where expectations, you have to look at that team, and if they don't make they should be a playoff team. There's no excuse. You change the head coach because everyone complained about Freddie Kitchens and Hugh Jackson the year before that, and we're saying that those guys weren't the answer. But you have two top receivers in Landry and Odell Beckham. You have excellent Austin Hooper. You signed him from Atlanta. Excellent tight end. Nick Chubb is definitely in the running for top 5 running back in the NFL. He's in that conversation. You look at the offensive line, it's solid. It comes down to Baker Mayfield. If he has the type of season like he did in the second year in his sophomore campaign, they're going to be another 6-10 season. Too many interceptions, not enough accuracy. And when you add all that up, you're going to have another disappointing campaign. So you sign Garrett to take care of the defensive side of things. It comes down to Mayfield and what he's going to do. So that signing was expected, but also and Garrett has to step his game up as well. And as Dak Prescott, look, he's not going to sign anything this year. We knew that he was going to wait for Dak Prescott, quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. We knew he was going to wait for the Pat Mahomes deal to be signed, and it was this offseason. So he sees what the game is, or what the market is. The Cowboys may have offered $30 million a year or $35 million a year. You see Mahomes get 30, 40 plus, and up to 50 plus if he reaches some incentives. So Prescott's going to be in that $38 million range per year, which he can get next year if they franchise tag him once again. Right now he's in a $31 million. That's what he's going to make this year in 2020. If they franchise him again, he'll be in the $38 million range, which is right below Mahomes. And after that, they can't franchise him again. He'll be a free agent. It's like Kirk Cousins. We're going to see the same exact thing play out. So if Prescott stays healthy over the next 2 years, he's going to make close to $70 million over the next 2 years. No one's going to make that this year. Not even Mahomes, because his contract, he still has 2 years under his rookie deal. So even Mahomes is not going to, because that 10 years kicks in after the 2022 season. 2021. Yeah, after just the next 2 seasons. So even Mahomes is not going to make that much money over the next 2 years. So Prescott and his agent, Todd France, Atlanta-based CAA, what they're going to do is that if Prescott does not get per year guaranteed that $37 to $40 million range, he's not going to sign a long-term deal. And the Cowboys are not going to make that offer within the next few hours as we record this show. Not likely. It's the Cowboys, it's Jerry Jones, you never know. But he's not going to up his contract pretty much $10 million per year guaranteed within the next few hours. So he's going to play under this franchise tag. If he stays upright and stays healthy, he's going to franchise again. And it hurts the Cowboys because what the Chiefs were able to do with Mahomes, even though you see that 10-year, $500 million, while it's a lot of money, and it's a lot of money, it is, but they're able to spread out, play some salary cap magic, and maneuver some things around so that they can sign a Chris Jones or put themselves in line to next year this time re-sign Watkins or Kelsey or take care of someone's offensive lineman because it's a long-term deal that can spread out the money, things like that. When you have these franchise tags, it's $30 million or $40 million, whatever it ends up being, the average. That's not negotiable. You can't work around that. So that's where the Cowboys really put themselves in a tough spot with not re-signing Prescott before this past season when they could have gotten a deal in the range of a Carson Wentz or Jared Goff. And he's comparable to those guys as far as a salary goes. Even before Russell Wilson re-signed his deal last offseason. He may have not gotten much as Russell Wilson, but he could have been, and the Cowboys could have worked around that range. So in the end, the Cowboys may end up paying close to double what they really should be paying if they played their cards right and didn't re-sign Ezekiel Elliott and Lawrence and those guys and Amari Cooper, taking care of all those secular cap positions that you can find. I hate to say, you can find another receiver or you can find another running back. And Cooper he's a very good wide receiver, probably a top 10 receiver in the NFL. Some would say Ezekiel Elliott's the best running back in the NFL when he's physically and mentally right. Top 5 guys, sure, but they're still not as valuable as your quarterback who has, in his 3 years starting, led them to the postseason twice, won a division, and has done some good things and put up some pretty solid numbers. But now they're going to have to pay him in the Pat Mahomes range, which is, he's not Mahomes. No one is right now at this stage of their career in the NFL. I'm talking currently right now. Now, there's some guys who have thrown, like a Drew Brees and Tom Brady, who are more accomplished. But when you have Mahomes' first 3 years, regular season MVP, Super Bowl MVP, 50 touchdown season. I mean, come on, that's legendary stuff. So Cowboys, they're going to have to deal with that and try to figure it out. And finally, in the technical state of Georgia athletics, fall sports, at least locally, as colleges, the latest news is that the fall sports in the ACC, which is Georgia Tech for us, and the SEC with Georgia, have been postponed till September 1st. That doesn't affect the conference seasons for those respective sports, not even football, because the way the calendar runs this year, we don't have any August 28th games or August 29th and things like that. I think the first set of games are after July 31st and September 1st. Now, I think volleyball may have some preseason, they may have some non-conference tournaments that they like to do before conference play starts. So that doesn't affect it in that regard, but we're starting to see these conferences try to push the envelope or push the decisions down to later on. We know that the SEC, they're having a major meeting at the end right now, or they're discussing what they're going to do. And at the end of the month of July, they'll have a decision as far as their football goes and their fall sports. I've been saying that they're going to have sports, or they're going to continue on with the regular season. They're going to have precautions. Fans are not going to be attending these games. And now college is different. I'll say NFL, you're not. But the Jaguars, you think about all the franchises that would be cautious of having people come to games. It'd be a team based in Florida. But no, Jacksonville says they're going to have, I think, a quarter capacity, which ends up being around 20 to 30,000 people that are going to be able to attend their football games. That's not going to fly, because if one team's going to have fans, that's competitive advantage, not only for the on the ball field or on the field, but financially. They get to charge for parking, concessions, merchandise, all that stuff. No. You're not going to have an empty Cowboy Stadium in Dallas, or empty Lambeau Field, or empty MetLife Stadium in New Jersey for the Giants and Jets. Yet the Jacksonville Jaguars are able to have fans and spectators and get that extra income and revenue? No, that's not going to happen. Colleges are different, though. I've seen both ends of it. I mean, we just talked about last show the Ivy League and the Patriot League, both Northeastern based, not the biggest football conferences, but it's college athletics of Division I. They are canceling all fall sports and trying to push it into the spring. So as we went on our last show, now I'll say it again. The college, and I'll throw out my Vanderbilt credentials as well. That's where I went, because I saw both sides of it. The college presidents look to the Ivy League for a lot of inspiration. And I knew when I was at Vanderbilt, private school, strong school, they would always look at private school. They look at the Ivy League, Notre Dame, Stanford, Northwestern, Duke to a lesser degree. But they will look at what those schools were doing as far as making decisions, and as far as their setups, their enrollments, and all with buildings and all that stuff, because that they consider that comparable. So that's where you have the presidents, the academic people, looking at the Ivy League, which is looked at in the Patriot League to a lesser degree, but definitely the Ivy League, as if Harvard and Yale are doing this, what are we going to do? And the reverse of that, or the other side of things, is that other athletic institutes, as far as the athletic departments, they look to the SEC and the ACC and Big Ten and see what they're doing. And that's what the ADs, if the SEC makes a move as far as postponing things, or the Big Ten, they were the first ones really to say we're playing only conference games of football. That's where, if you're a Pac-12 team or a Big 12 team, you're looking at what the SEC and the Big Ten are doing, and looking at their perspective, like what's going on here. So that's when you see the fall sports, and they're making these decisions. Those are the big boys, and that's when you're going to also see what's Conference USA going to do, the AAC, the Sun Belt, the WAC, the MAC, the MEAC, all those teams kind of tying together as far as what the next moves are. So when you see that the ACC and SEC are postponing their stuff, and the Patriot League are suspending their fall sports until hopefully the spring, keep a note of that and keep acknowledge that, and that'll be a major kind of marking point to what we're going to see with other sports. And that concludes today's show. Thanks for listening to our broadcast. As always, you want to follow everything that we're doing, head to thesportsinquirer.net and go to our social media platforms, and that'll be a great way to check on everything that we're doing. We plan to do our next show on July 17th, and on that broadcast, we'll recap Atlanta United's contest against FC Cincinnati, and hopefully also more news and notes around the world of sports that we can discuss. If there's anything you want to discuss, or me to discuss, send me an email at sportsinquirer@gmail.com, or mpourtut, MPOURTUT, @gmail.com, or leave us a message on either one of our platforms, and we'll be sure to address it on our next show. Until next time, good fight, good night, and be safe.